I did a series called The Rian Wars, which I haven't returned to for a while. I'll be getting back to it and finish up a couple videos that I meant to. This, to be fair, is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I think an important one in terms of this alleged debate on TLJ. So we're going to listen to Cosmonaut, and I think it's actually going to be very, very telling because I think people have this picture that if you're not on the side of people like Critical Drinker, Mauler, EFAP, Nerdrotic, they put themselves out as in the normal, sane majority opinion. So we're going to see the numbers don't quite add up. And you might think, well, Cosmo hates EFAP, he doesn't like Mauler. But as we're going to see, that is not going to lead to where you think it does.
I don't... This is hard. Okay, what about The Last Jedi? The Last Jedi. I don't think I've ever... I did give it a score, right? Where's my number? Where is my number? 7. Okay. Hold on. Not bad. Not bad. We're not that far off. This is obviously review bombed, right? Like, come on. So I think that that's okay, right? Solo? Okay, now let's not talk about Solo. I've already gone over the fact that I may like Solo more than the average person. Alright, people want me to check Solo. Fine, I'll check Solo. This isn't fair, man. This isn't fair. Oh. No. Listen, I know that this one, I just like this movie. Look, I still want to point out, though, look at these fucking dark-ass shots.
Now, I want to be fair. What he's doing throughout this whole video is basically comparing his scores to Meta, yes, but also Rotten Tomatoes. And he's more concerned with how he's viewed as a contrarian. So he's covering a lot of topics. So The Last Jedi is only a minor thing he touches upon. But it is interesting. He did say it. He says, and again, notice his score was 7 out of 10. And he's like, well, I had my own issues with this film. I didn't give it a perfect score, but yeah, this rating by the users, that's a little bit too small. That really can't be the real rating. So I'm going to reject that rating. So I'm like, that's pretty hilarious that even somebody who was lukewarm about The Last Jedi is not buying the number. Now, of course, you could just double down and say, well, he's part of the conspiracy. Secretly, he loves The Last Jedi. He just gave it a phony lukewarm rating. Well, that may be true, but he also went to Rotten Tomatoes. And on Rotten Tomatoes, The Last Jedi also got really good numbers from the critics. So you can have two theses. One would be that, well, this is just a case where the audience split with the critics. Critics don't know what they're talking about. And there we go. But another theory, which I think is more likely, is the user numbers with The Last Jedi can't be trusted. They're being manufactured or they're being skewed. So those aren't really reflective of the real population. Because the numbers are huge, right? 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000. Statistically, this should stand for the whole population. But if you study statistics carefully, the sample has to be not biased to begin with. Again, that's a very deep issue of probability and statistics if you can ever do that. But the point is, you want to start with that. You don't want to start with a population that is already biased because it's worthless. So, in other words, if you have people who just hate The Last Jedi, and for the sake of discussion, I'm just going to call them the EFAP audience. If the EFAP audience already begins with hating The Last Jedi and vote to hate The Last Jedi, then yeah, the scores are going to be very, very low. But something's not adding up because among the big YouTubers, including Cosmo, he's giving it a lukewarm rating, but people like Quentin Reviews, Jenny Nichols, really like The Last Jedi a lot more. And I think they don't give numbers, but I think they would say, this was a really, really good film or a really great film. I'm not understanding all this hatred it's getting. And again, it's not like you would think, well, these are shills, or they're voting for the politics because they didn't like Solo and they gave Rise of Skywalker a very low rating, or they said it was really, really bad. A lot of the conspiracy theories don't hold up. Like, oh, they're just Marvel, MCU shows, Disney shows. Doesn't make any sense because they didn't endorse the other films. You could say, well, they agreed with the political message. Well, if the conspiracy is correct, all these films have the same political message, but no, they still differed. It does seem that the critics, YouTubers, who are very big, align with one another, so it does seem the basic thesis that critics like The Last Jedi is correct. So the issue is here the audiences. And the problem, of course, is does the EFAP audience stand for the entire audience? And the answer is that can't be correct because we got Quentin, we got Jenny, and we got Cosmo. They either have close to 1 million or over 1 million subscribers. Something's not adding up. And you look at Mahler, he's at 400,000. That's still pretty big. But when you compare it to Quentin, again, the lower half, by the way, and you just run the numbers, right? 4 out of 11, you would have to say the audience that really hates The Last Jedi, again, on the internets, is the minority. It's just this minority is very intense, is voting very intensely. But let's put the best case scenario. Let's put somebody like Critical Drinker who has 1 million subscribers. Well, even if that's true and you do the numbers, that rating is still too low because then you have half the audience that hates The Last Jedi and half the audience that either likes it or tolerates it. So it really should be a middling number, either 5, 5.5, right? Maybe 4.9. That's not what's happening. It's unfortunately pretty obvious what's occurring is that people who hate The Last Jedi, the EFAP audience, are overwhelming the voting mechanism and deliberately skewing the numbers all the time. Now, that may tell you something about The Last Jedi, but it really doesn't. It just seems that people who hate The Last Jedi really, really, really hate it with incredible intensity. But in terms of the voting, it's not really moving the numbers because when we do the numbers carefully, you're still in the minority. The fact that you're skewing the voting does, if anything, verifies that you can only win by playing with the numbers. Like it or not, normal people overall either like The Last Jedi or are indifferent or even like it or love it. People who hate it are the minority, but among critics, it is overwhelming. They all think The Last Jedi is either great or near perfect or excellent or flawless. At the end of the day, it's the obvious. This is a very, very small group. It's claiming to be a much bigger group and it's claiming to speak for normal people, but it is basically the EFAP audience talking to itself, which they can be perfectly free to do that, but they can't be generalizing to me, you, or normal people, much less people on the internet. Whatever metric you're going to use, it does seem at the very best we're getting a small minority or a large minority, but it is a minority.